Disclaimer, I do not own a PlayStation. Well, Starfield, the latest Bethesda game, is out, and it surely is a Bethesda game. In case you aren't aware, I made a video saying that Starfield would be disappointing for you. In that video, I warned that pre-ordering might be a bad idea and that people should wait for reviews. But I also made predictions about Starfield that I now want to see if I got right or wrong. The video created a lot of controversy, which was very shocking to me, and as such, it would be wrong if I did not do my due diligence and verify whether I was right or wrong in the relative predictions that I made. My plan of attack with this topic is giving myself W's and L's based on the predictions that I made. If I got something right, I will give myself a W, and if I got something wrong, I will give myself an L. I will leave the link to the video in the description so you can verify it for yourself. And without further ado, let's get started. Now, my first prediction was related to performance. I said that the game would perform badly, but I focused primarily on the frame rate. So, was I right? Well, from reports, we can see that on consoles, the game maintains a stable 30 FPS, minus a few set moments, such as in Space Battle, where it dips for just a few seconds. However, that in and of itself is rare. On PC, however, is where the problems start showing up. It still maintains a relatively stable FPS, but it does have occasional freezing on PC and occasional crashes. The game is just not well optimized for PC. There is already a massive quantity of guides rivaling encyclopedias trying to help PC players get more FPS on PC. Just to make it clear, the problem isn't that the FPS dips, because it doesn't. For the most part. The problem is that the game just runs poorly, giving you 60 FPS on the lowest settings on top-of-the-line PCs. That's right, PCs worth multiple thousands of dollars can only get 60 FPS on the lowest settings for the most part. I imagine that this is because the game is attempting to maintain graphical fidelity, because even in comparisons between the lowest settings and the highest settings, the game does not look all that different. But wait, there's more. Hello, Enclave Emily from the future here. You see, after recording this, it came out that Starfield is a little bit special when it comes to, you know, optimization. You see, I've been asking how the how in the actual fuck can a game at the lowest possible settings only give you a slight FPS boost compared to the top settings? Why is the game effectively so pushing the boundaries in terms of performance when the game doesn't look magnanimous? I'm not saying the game doesn't look good, it does, I'll get to that. But how is this possible? Well, you see, some tech-savvy people, some gamers online have found out something very interesting about Starfield. And because not all of you may be proficient in how games work, I'm going to show you this. Here is a box, a cube. But now, the cube is somewhat detailed because it's not just a perfect cube, so how many triangles do you think it would take to make this cube? 200? 300? Maybe 1,000, maybe 5,000, because it's really detailed, you know? 5,000? Let's try 6,000, yeah, 6,000, what do you think, guys? 6,000 to make this cube? Yeah, try 126,000 fucking triangles to make one box out of the dozens you are going to find in a single area of a single level. How about this sandwich? How many triangles do you think this has? 1,000? 2,000? Try 70,000. This is why the frame rate doesn't really improve that much. And it's also why, even on consoles, the game occasionally dips from 30 to 20-something FPS. It's rare on consoles, but if you're playing on PC, it's fucking nightmarish. And it's why even the strongest rigs out there struggle to get this game above 60, because every single fucking frame in this game, every single fucking object in this game is so ridiculously detailed with so many polygons that your PC is spending most of its time just trying to process all of this and get it to render. So I guess my point was actually correct. The game is going to be optimized like shit, and it was optimized like shit, not because it wasn't that well optimized per se, but because the game is so full of over-detailed shite that your PC is killing itself trying to just render a fucking box. The performance is stable on consoles for the most part, but it's poorly optimized for PC, and the crashes are just something that I can't ignore. However, due to my prediction being mostly surrounding the frame rate itself, I will give myself both an L and a W for this prediction. My second prediction was that some of the pre-order bonuses, which were the digital soundtrack and digital art book, were not adequate enough to justify pre-ordering, and that they would be leaked so soon that, even if you believe them to be good bonuses, it would not be worth pre-ordering for. So, was I right? Well, before the game had even released to everyone, it was already leaked online. So, if you pre-ordered to get the MP3 soundtracks and the JPEG files, which were the art books, well, fuck it, I told you so. What did you expect? Wait a fucking second, did they actually sell a £35 premium edition in which the bonuses include a fucking skin? For a fucking single-player game? This is fucking stupid, like, for fuck's sake, just give me a W and let's move on. My third prediction was in relation to the physics being tied to the frame rate. I predicted that they would be tied in the frame rate in the sense that if the game went over 60 FPS or whatever frame rate it was locked to, the in-game physics would start behaving bizarrely and unnaturally as a result. If you're confused about what I mean by this, consider Fallout 4, where you could run into a car and if your FPS was too high, you would die because the in-game physics would get confused. Surprisingly, it seems that I was wrong. There is a bug in the New Atlantis city specifically, where a group of NPCs will hover if you are above 60 FPS, but it's such a specific set of circumstances to achieve it, that it ends up being more of a glitch than an inherent game issue, which is related to the frame rate. If it happened consistently over and over and over again throughout the game, then I would give myself a W here, but because it's so specific, I'm going to give myself an L. I mean, fuck, it took me such a while to figure this out because people with better PCs than mine struggle to get above 60 FPS, but still, I was wrong. Next up, we have my bland exploration prediction, where I predicted that the exploration would be effectively pointless as most planets would be procedurally generated, bland worlds with no real differences other than textures and layouts. I am not sure why people were surprised that the planets aren't really worth exploring. Procedurally generated content in Starfield is bad overall, be it in missions or level layout, because it ends up being the same. It's fine when used in limited quantity to complement some sections of already detailed worlds, don't get me wrong, but, need I remind you, Starfield was advertised as having 1,000 planets. That was a selling point presented to get people hyped and to not think about how Bethesda, which is Bethesda, would achieve it. Not only can you not land on some planets, which is fine in the case of gas giant planets, but most of the planets you can land on have nothing to them other than the minerals you extract from them. No ruins of extinct ancient civilizations, no real biomes per planet you can transition to while walking around in them, nothing. Just rocky planet with a hole and number 214, sandy planet with some hills number 563, copy-pasted abandoned mine planet number 327, or copy-pasted abandoned laboratory number 941. Gee, I'm starting to notice a pattern here. It sounds good in theory to say that you can explore these planets and find these abandoned locations and see what's up with them, but it just sucks in practice. Because while it might be interesting for you the first, second, third, or even fourth time, it gets really fucking dull by the 20th. It's boring and has less depth to it than the latest fucking Sonic game. Because at least there, it went from a rocky valley to a waterfall area in the first island. Yeah, fuck's sake, this prediction of mine was the equivalent of saying that a minute passes every 60 seconds, and yet some people were actually surprised by this. Yeah, that's a W for me. Moving on. Now, don't be surprised if I ever make a post showing the analytics for this video, showing that people dropped off exactly at this point, because I was right, and they fucking know it, but I predicted that the role-playing in this role-playing game would be ankle deep, and I want to give myself an L here because that was a massive overstatement. In Starfield, the dialogue amounts to you win, you lose, or give me more info. If you manage to get enough points to persuade a character, you win and get things made easier for you. If you lose, it becomes harder, or you're locked out of the option. Bethesda must really be proud of Fallout 3 because, of course, this leads to save scumming, where people effectively simply save before an important dialogue and simply repeat it until they win. This whole persuasion thing is based on a rank that gives you a higher percentage chance of a check succeeding. To upgrade this rank, you have to do more persuasion checks in order to upgrade the persuasion skill, which is effectively a perk. In other words, to upgrade a persuasion skill, you have to do challenges such as pass 3, 4, or 5 persuasion checks. So, if you don't go around grinding dialogue, you're far past fucked. There's virtually no alternate options that let you roleplay a character and you get to the same result through different means. It's either you passed the challenge or you did not pass the challenge. Bethesda really are innovative because they've managed to create a role-playing game where to roleplay, you have to grind dialogue. Grinding fucking dialogue, man! Oh, but it's even worse than that. It's even worse than I predicted. You see, what I just described is the same for other skills in the game. Wanna be good at bribing people? Well, you have to bribe people. Want to do more damage? Shoot X amount of enemies. Not based on average accuracy, how many shots you hit, or how many headshots you get, just literally multiple kill X enemies challenges. And because you killed a certain amount of enemies, you just start magically doing more damage with the same gun. The most egregious one of these that highlights how fucked the system is the fucking engine system skill. If you boost 25 times in combat, you get rewarded with your ship going 20% faster. Just to make sure you got that, your ship will magically get faster just because you previously boosted 25 times. I'm not sure how pressing a button 25 times makes your spaceship go faster, but whatever, it's fucking stupid. What's next? Your spaceship magically becomes more accurate if you shoot enough enemies? Oh, fuck off! I can't believe I'm going to say this, but can we please, in the name of Phil Spencer, get the Fallout 4 system back, because this is OnlyFans mother levels of fucked. But I digress. The point is, to change your character, you have to grind, and if you have to grind and complete arbitrary challenges in order to develop basic skills of a character, or to receive stupid nonsensical boosts, then your role-playing game is badly designed. Because at that point, you may just be playing a generic MMORPG that just wants to suck your wallet because all you're doing is grinding. But yeah, I was right in this prediction. People who said the game would have intricate progression were fucking wrong. Fuck you. I wasn't sure whether to include this one because it's so minor, but I said that you wouldn't be able to disguise yourself as someone else in order to bypass areas. To clarify what I mean by this, consider Fallout New Vegas, for example, where you could disguise yourself as a member of an opposing faction, such as NCR or Legion, in order to infiltrate some areas or to not be attacked when a member of said faction passed by you. In that game, and by the way, this also exists in Skyrim, it was a neat little trick. It wouldn't exactly be useful throughout the whole game, but you had the option to, and there were situations where it did help. So is this the case for Starfield? Well, I was right, you can't do this. There is one mission where you can get the uniform of security officers in order to complete an infiltration task, but that is one scripted mission and does not apply to other parts of the game that I know of. It's yet another limitation as how you can tackle challenges in the game. This could be solved by simply having clothing that tagged you as friendly to members of a specific faction unless combat was initiated, but no, of course not. I know this is rather minor, but even Skyrim had this to some extent. So the fact it's not possible here, in a game with a pirate faction that has literal fucking uniforms, is more disappointing than an issue, but it's another thing I got right. Character depth. I have to admit something. Of all of my predictions, this is the one I ended up being the most surprised about. For starters, it's an L. Count it right now. Contrary to what I predicted, the characters actually have some depth to them. Characters actually have reasons for being there. They are characters. They have aspects to them not related to whatever their description is. Sam Coe, for example, is a gruff sheriff-type cowboy who has a strong sense of justice, that being the focus of his character. However, you can then later find that he has familial issues. He's worried about being a good father to a daughter he didn't expect to have, and you get this moment of vulnerability from a character that, if you don't dig deeper, would very simply just appear to be generic sheriff dude number 156. Not every character is like this, but there are also deeper characters from what I can tell, so good job Starfield, you improved on Bethesda's typical trash and proved me wrong. A rare occurrence considering I tend to be right. But yeah, an L for me. Oh boy, here we go. In my video, I predicted that the game would be filled with a bunch of fetch quests, sprinkled with superficial dialogue and fake plot-defining choices. I was wrong. It's worse. It's not only fetch quests, just to make it clear, it's just a lot of them. Most of the main storyline quests can be effectively described as go here, get this, or go there, talk to this person. I know there are other quests where you have to, say, off the top of my head, rob a bank, but from what I can see, my description is more accurate than not for the main quest line. There are no real significant puzzles to solve or different ways to solve issues which are unlocked to you based on your character or your preferred playstyle or previous choices that isn't just stealth V run and gun. It's often just going to location and getting thing, or going to person and choosing whether to murder them in the face or talk to them. There often isn't a real incentive to talk to other people or finding things that may lead to different outcomes, like in games such as Fallout New Vegas, so that's a recurring theme. In that game, your reputation, skills, previous choices, previous actions, or relationships with different characters could all impact what options would be given to you in other quests, or how said quests would play out overall. There isn't any of that here from what I could tell, and this issue is further compounded by the fact that there's only 3 endings outside of New Game Plus, and none of which are impacted based on the choices you've made up until that point. Spoiler alert, by the way, but the only thing that affects your ending in Starfield is one single fucking choice, where you can pick either the same good, bad, or independent ending defined by who you side with. Lore-wise, there's only 3 endings. It's more detailed than Fallout 4, which only had 2 different endings due to 3 out of 4 of the options being copy-pasted, which is an improvement, but it's still inferior to how it works in competing RPGs such as Cyberpunk. I mean, for fuck's sake, it has the same depth, but less endings than Daggerfall. Yes, Daggerfall, as in Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall, the 1996 video game. Black Ops 2 had more endings than this, and those were dependent on multiple choices and optional success in side missions. This is so lazy, it's fucking unreal. I can now unironically claim that Call of Duty Black Ops 2, a Call of Duty game, might I remind you, is more of an RPG than Starfield when it comes to how a story concludes. Jesus fucking Christ. Short one. I don't know why I had this in my original video. It's not super duper beautiful, but you can cherry pick different screenshots for whatever your point is. The game looks good for the most part, and though when you're on empty planets it looks somewhat boring, well, to me at least, it still looks good in terms of textures, animations, lighting, shading, and so on. So, sure, character model quality flows in and out, but it's an L for me. The game looks good. I don't know why I had this in my video. Yeah, I was wrong. Now, if you've been paying attention so far, you might have noticed that while all of the predictions I got right ended up being negative aspects of the game, not all incorrect predictions translated to good aspects about Starfield. You might have also noticed that I never predicted that Starfield was going to be a bad game, but that I did say it was going to be a bad RPG. Some people evidently didn't get that because I didn't say it like they were 6 years old, but hey, whatever. Objectively speaking, this game barely counts as an RPG, and its exploration is largely window dressing, as it amounts to a loading screen simulator shoved in between radiant areas with few well-designed handcrafted zones such as Atlantis City. The whole point of my videos on Starfield was to say that Bethesda has a tendency to mislead customers with ambiguous advertising that might lead you to believe one thing when the reality is another. And as such, people should take that into account before buying the game. As a result of this, I predicted that pre-ordering the game would not be worthwhile. So, did I get it right, or did I get it wrong? Is it a W or an L? Well, if you haven't figured it out yet, it's both. You're probably confused. You see, Bethesda has effectively created a new genre of games. The Bethesda game is a game that functions as an excellent basis for modders to create their own experiences, as they often have good quality open worlds with standardized, often decent combat mechanics, a basic story, and basic choices. It's a type of game where you can typically recognize what company it's from with a single screenshot or a basic description. However, the Bethesda game also tends to be advertised as something it's not. Not in a way as to where it's an outright lie, but in a way as to lead to underwhelming results. Or to mask the underwhelming nature of it, you pick. This game was advertised as having space exploration when it's just a loading screen simulator where you fast travel between being in a spot near planet A or spot near planet B, requiring or incentivizing you to fast travel between the two. It's advertised as having 1,000 planets to explore, when not all planets can even be explored, and those that are, more often than not, are limited to a few set areas. Most of which are, again, more often than not procedurally generated rather than being handcrafted. I don't expect 1,000 handcrafted planets in my video game, but I'd rather have less than 1% of that amount of planets if it means that all of them are made by people rather than by a computer AI. Even the pre-order bonuses weren't worth it, because unless you bought the super expensive ones that gave you a watch, for example, it really was just basic stuff that you would get for free anyway. For what it's trying to be, it's hard to argue that it's anything other than objectively bad or at least underwhelming. But as a game, a Bethesda game, then the arguments become more varied. So if you bought it and pre-ordered it because it's a Bethesda game, then it certainly was worth pre-ordering. However, if you bought it despite it being a Bethesda game, it was absolutely not worth it, I'd argue. And honestly, you have nobody to blame but yourself for believing in Bethesda if you're in the latter case, because Bethesda has been like this for over a decade, and almost every single one of their releases since Oblivion has fit the above description to some degree and gotten only more stale and more blatant over the years. People such as myself tried to point this out and were often disregarded as PlayStation fanboys or Bethesda haters, and honestly, I hope that this serves as a lesson for future Bethesda releases. Because if you were disappointed by Starfield in any way, if you were underwhelmed, or if you spend more time on Twitter telling people how you love Starfield than you do actually playing it, then, unless you're a masochist, you should probably be more cautious with your decisions in relation to purchasing from Bethesda in the future. If you do enjoy Starfield, then I can't stop you from enjoying it. By all means, I hope you have as much fun as possible in it, and believe me when I say I'm being honest about that. However, it is very difficult to argue against the idea that the game's advertising was misleading. As such, I feel safe in stating that Starfield likely did disappoint you. Not just because of all the things I have previously mentioned, but also because it has restarted the fucking console wars, and it's so bad that people are review bombing multiple websites positively and negatively, and websites are having to remove fucking reviews by the thousands. And I'm sorry, when you are doing that, I think you are more interested in the reputation of the game than you are in actually enjoying it. However, if there's anything to take away from this whole saga, is that you should be more careful when it comes to pre-ordering or buying on release. It risks rewarding game companies for misleading advertising. And you don't miss out on much if you don't pre-order anyway. Sure, you might not get to play early, but unless they're giving you something physical, it's probably not worth it. Thank you guys for watching, thank you guys for rating, thank you all for your support, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.